Welcome to this course module, which will give you an overview of the life science industries. The life science market is worldwide, with companies found in North America, Europe, Asia, South America, and Australia as well. The three panels on the screen will give you some idea of the numbers of biotech and pharmaceutical companies that can be found in the United Kingdom and on both coasts of the United States. If we look closer at the East Coast segment, you will find a lot of companies that you will recognize, and these are just the major ones. There are lots of small companies that don't even show up on the map. New companies are coming into play every day. Some of them will have short lives. Others will go on and make significant contributions to the medical industry. The life science industry covers a wide range of technologies and products with a significant impact on our daily lives. They include treatments for us, such as curing disease and addressing medical problems with implants to fix problems in the human body. Specialties, such as sports medicine, taking care of the animals that we have as pets, and agricultural applications that include genetically modified plants, such as corn and wheat, and animals used in food production. Medical applications include devices that are used for diagnostic purposes and treatments, things such as pacemakers that can help the human heart beat on a regular basis, and equipment that is used for brain scans and MRIs and other diagnostic procedures. Agriculture and life sciences have improved the health and well-being of animals and include both our pets as well as livestock that is used for food production. It has also improved the effectiveness of production farming, providing for treatments and disease in animals and plants, pest removal, and the development of genetically modified foods that can resist adverse environmental and biological attacks. We are going to narrow our focus into two areas: the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries. The pharmaceutical industry uses chemical substances, usually small molecules, for treating, curing, and preventing various diseases. There are different measures that can determine the importance and size of industries. Some look at the effect those industries have on our lives. Others look to the financial condition. This chart shows the financial status of a number of the largest pharmaceutical companies as of June 28, 2011. The numbers in yellow will give you an idea of the rank of some of them in the Fortune 500 list. In the two charts, the columns on the right will show you the dollar value for these companies. The market capitalization of the overall industry is almost $700 billion in size. And these first few companies that are listed range in size from over $200 billion to about $6 billion. This isn't an exhaustive list. You may find many companies you're familiar with, and there are many more. The history of the pharmaceutical industry goes back to the Middle Ages. Examples of medicines can be found in a wide range of cultures. The real economic development began in Europe. Although the molecular basis of treatments wasn't understood, treatments for diseases and ailments go back to extracts from plants and herbal treatments, things that people discovered that worked and made a difference. One of the best known examples is aspirin, a drug that is still being used today and is finding new applications in treatments from everything from a headache to cancer. Originally, people discovered that they could chew on the bark from a willow tree, and that would ease some aches and pains and give them relief. It wasn't until the late 1800s, when synthetic forms of aspirin were produced, that the drug industry as we know it was born. In the 1920s and 1930s, drugs such as insulin and penicillin were discovered, mass-produced, manufactured, and distributed. Their widespread application and success bolstered the development of the industry. During that time, the pharmaceutical industry became established with the major manufacturing work taking place in both the US and Europe. Today, we seem to be past the blockbuster phase of drug development. The understanding is that the kinds of compounds like aspirin that have very widespread application is past, and that we need to focus on more targeted applications of drugs, including the development of personalized medicine. But surprises can still happen. Someone may still find a compound that has widespread application and can benefit a large population. Both the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries have become highly regulated. Because of the potential economic benefits, competition is fierce, and strategies for entering the market include not only carrying out research for new compounds, but also looking at ways of circumventing patent protection so that variants of a drug can be produced. This allows a manufacturer to reap sales benefits without the extensive investment in research and development. As a result, there are a wide number of challenges that have to be addressed in both pharmaceutical and biotech industries. Counterfeit drugs are an issue. Manufacturers are trying to make cheap knockoffs of existing drugs, sometimes alterated, and selling them as the real thing to make a profit. This is one of the reasons that regulation is so pervasive. In addition, product quality can be a problem. Legitimate manufacturers have to guard against problems with suppliers providing alterated or poor quality raw materials. Occasionally, you find manufacturers taking shortcuts, causing problems with product quality and effectiveness. Another challenge for research and development is finding new candidates for drug development, and given that patent life is currently only 20 years from the date of filing and the cost of drug development can exceed $1 billion, the pressure is on for companies to be effective and efficient in finding and developing candidates for disease treatment. IT has a significant role in this process. Information management and data mining are essential to the modern success. Companies are reviewing older data for useful indications of commercially viable drug candidates and to reevaluate existing products for new applications. Recent changes in patent law are also adding to the challenge of economically producing drugs. Up until recently, patents were awarded on the basis of the earliest documentation of the compound's application. Companies would often delay patent applications to allow them to get the maximum revenue life out of the product. By keeping the drug a secret during the research and development phase, they can delay the start of the 20-year clock, starting it at a later date and generate more revenue while still maintaining patent protection. Patent laws now provides patent protection based on the filing date as a means of deciding between competing claims. That means that companies have to file earlier than they normally would have and reduces the amount of protection they have on the compound and the time to generate income without competition. From the standpoint of information technology, there are considerable challenges that have to be faced in supporting companies' research and development and marketing efforts. Foremost is the sheer amount of data that has to be collected and managed as part of the process of discovering drug candidates and bringing them to market. Not only do we have to deal with the extensive documentation that has to be produced during research and development, but also the information that needs to be created to support regulatory filings to the FDA in the United States and similar agencies in other geographies. The use of contract facilities for testing, research, and manufacturing also increases the technology burden in information management. Not only do companies have to worry about the data it produces, but also the management and coordination of the data that is produced by the contracting companies. Merging the data from the contracting facility is another issue. Differing products, database architectures, terminology, and policies can make IT's life complicated. Another area that is receiving increasing attention is the management of research databases. Companies have been doing research and development for years. Much of the data is recorded on paper and laboratory notebooks. In the last decade, the development of electronic laboratory notebooks has increased the dependence on information technology. One need is the ability to coordinate databases from multiple researchers that might be doing work over a wide geography in multinational corporations or as a result of collaborative programs. Their information has to be managed in a way that allows it to be stored, searched, and accessed so that companies can get the full measure of value that exists in the information. New technologies and data mining are giving companies the ability to look at information in new ways and extract useful knowledge. That is further driving database design, development, and use. This has led some multinational companies to look at the development of the ultimate database that contains all of their research data and manufacturing data in one system, a possibility that's supported by the development of electronic laboratory notebook in the last decade. As noted earlier, the goal is to allow wide access to research data. This can prevent duplication of existing work and allows for more effective and efficient drug development. The pharmaceutical industry alone creates huge amounts of data. Much of it isn't used effectively. A quarter of all experiments are duplicated because people didn't know the work that had been previously done, let alone knowing where to find it. Access to old but useful information is an important driving factor, avoiding spending money twice for the same result and loss of time in the process. Where the pharmaceutical industry relies on the discovery and development of small molecules for disease treatment, the biotechnology industry looks at the use of biological systems to develop treatments and methods of attacking medical problems or improving agricultural products. While the biotechnology industry is actually much older than the pharmaceutical industry, its development as a commercial enterprise is fairly recent, and as a result, the size of the companies is considerably smaller than their counterparts in the pharmaceutical industry. The charts on the screen show financial information for some of the leading biotechnology companies. Notice that the entire market capitalization for the industry is only about $165 billion, and the rankings on the Fortune 500 list are much lower than their pharma counterparts. The top-ranked biotechnology company is just below the 11th ranked pharmaceutical company in market capitalization. Biotechnology has been around for a long time. The beer you may enjoy, new strains of plants including modern corn and wheat are all examples of applications of biotechnology. It is just that the people who did it didn't know they were creating an industry. Gregor Mendel's work on inheritance and the discovery of dominant and recessive genes in the late 1850s was actually one of the forerunners of biotechnology. His understanding of inheritance paved the way for much of what we have today. More modern applications under development include drug production, using combinations of drugs and genetic treatments for disease, and also genetic testing. One area that is undergoing rapid development is the understanding of how the structure of the human genome can be used as a basis for treating diseases and other medical conditions. The idea is that as we better understand the impact of genetics on these conditions, we can tailor treatments to individuals based on their genetic structure. As far as industry challenges go, we see the same things in the biotech industry as we did in the pharmaceutical industry. Biotech companies tend to be fairly easy to start up, and once they start showing promise in product or technology development, they become ready targets for acquisition by pharmaceutical companies. Because of the relatively low market capitalization of biotech companies, they are easily bought up and made part of a larger, better funded entity. However, this does create some problems for IT groups. Just as we saw with contract facilities, both companies had their own sets of intellectual property, data systems, and methods of assessing and storing critical information. If the biotech partner is to become integrated within the purchasing company, those systems have to be merged, and this can be a major challenge for IT groups. Different database structures, differing approaches, and policies have to be reconciled. Initially, the biotechnology industry faced the same technology challenges as we saw earlier in the pharmaceutical market. However, because of the nature of the research that is done, it brings along a whole new set of challenges and issues. For example, because we are dealing with biological systems and not just small molecules, things become very complex. One issue is that a lot of biotechnology work is focused on protein structures. Some scientists believe that many, if not most, health issues can be addressed through an understanding of protein deficiency and treatment. Understanding the structure of proteins is key to understanding how they function in your body. This work is computationally intensive, chewing up large amounts of computer time for each protein understudy. The same holds true for analyzing genome sequences and looking for specific genes. These become large database structural searches for the IT group. That means they have to support fast machines with large amounts of data storage. One example of this is understanding protein folding. The shapes of molecules in biological systems control how they interact and function. Take, for example, table sugar. Sucrose, the stuff you put in your coffee or tea. It breaks down into two sugars, glucose and fructose, during digestion. Glucose molecules can arrange themselves into different shapes, as shown on the screen. You can ingest a lot of the minus glucose type and not be able to digest any of it. It has the wrong shape, where the positive form is easily metabolized, so the shape of molecules matters. Understanding how proteins fold and how the shape they take is important in understanding how they function in the body and how they affect diseases. The computational problem is sufficiently complex and requires enough computing time that distributed processing techniques are being used to do the analysis. Some of you may be familiar with the distributed processing that was done for the analysis of radio telescope signals, the SETI at Home project. In that project, the idle time on thousands of home computers was used to download, analyze, and report the results for packets of information. The same thing is being done to attack the protein folding problem. The large number of calculations that have to be done are broken down into individual data sets that home computers can download, analyze, and report. The results of thousands of computers doing their individual calculations are combined to help to do the analysis. Other methods are also being employed successfully to deal with large-scale computational problems in biotechnology. Dealing with these massive amounts of data and results are just some of the challenges that IT groups can find themselves dealing with. Both the pharmaceutical and biotech industries have extensive programs to find molecules that might be of biological importance. You may often hear news reports of people doing research work in jungle or marine environments with the possibility of finding cures for cancer and other diseases. What they're really doing is looking for molecules produced by organisms that may have an effect against a specific disease. For example, curare is a potent toxin derived from plants found in the Amazon region. When used at full strength, it can paralyze the victim. However, when diluted, it has been shown to be an effective treatment for diseases such as tetanus or strychnine poisoning. It was also discovered to have promise as an anesthetic. For those carrying on this research, it means that a very large number of molecules have to be tested against diseases to screen for candidates for further study. For IT professionals, this means the development and support of very large databases. This work is often done with robotic systems in high throughput screening programs. There are other industries active within the life sciences community. Medical devices is one such industry. Most of the equipment you see in doctors' offices or hospitals are medical devices and have to go through a development phase that includes not only the development of the science behind the medical device, the hardware development needed to create the device, but also software that is used to control it. While many pieces of equipment function at the hardware level, such as implants and stethoscopes, most modern medical device applications use extensive software development to create working products. Just as the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries are heavily regulated, so is the medical device industry. All of the large volumes of documentation needed to support a company's request for approval from the FDA are needed here, just as they are in dealing with drug treatments. Software development often undergoes special scrutiny to make sure that the software is well designed, documented, tested, and supported. The FDA has policies and procedures for product software and its validation before it can be used in clinical studies. The patient care portion of the medical industry is another area where IT applications have become increasingly important. The recent trend toward electronic patient records is requiring doctors' offices and their staffs to address computing systems, networks, and shared databases that are replacing paper records and files. While this will have a very long-term benefit, in the short term there is a lot of chaos as those working in a doctor's office adapt to the new methods and convert existing paper systems to electronic forms. In the hospital and clinical side of the operations, matters are quite different. 20 years ago, hospitals and clinical laboratories were faced with cost management across the board. Because of the way the contracts are structured, the fees they can charge for their work were set and they had to offset increasing costs with improved efficiency. They did this by improving the way information systems in the hospital interacted. This was done on the administrative side by the development of a series of standards that came under the heading of HL7. In clinical laboratories, this issue was addressed by the adoption of a philosophy of total laboratory automation. Both TLC and HL7 are heavily dependent upon communication standards for data and information exchange. As a result of their work, they were able to achieve cost reductions and improve efficiency, exhibiting itself in reduced manpower and overhead. In short, they did the job right. This isn't the case in industrial laboratories, something we will address later on. The last broad category of life sciences we will take a look at is that of nutrition. Almost everyone has a broad feel for what nutrition is about: what you eat, what you should eat, the quality of foods, and the possibility of allergies. There is often not much consideration for the IT issues surrounding nutrition because of difficulties with human experimentation. Getting reliable data on nutritional factors can be a problem. As a result, databases are built for nutritional studies, the behavior, population, etc., all of which are used in large-scale statistical analysis. The results of these analyses are heard on the news and in the newspapers about what you should eat and what the effects of caffeine are, for example. The structure of studies can greatly bias the results and often leads to conflicting data that on one day shows that a given food is good for you and the next day contradicts those results. Outsourcing is another major factor in the life sciences industries. While not specifically about scientific development, it is about how the work of life sciences actually gets done. Contract outsourcing organizations are service industries that support any of the areas of work we have looked at by providing contract testing, manufacturing, or research services. They don't create or market products, but they help companies that do reach their goals. Because they exist, a very small biotech startup can have access to extensive facilities that they might not otherwise be able to afford. Contract testing laboratories, for example, are found during both laboratory testing work and clinical trials. Clinical trials are something we will cover in depth later on. They may, in fact, provide the bulk of the testing work for small companies. The same holds true for contract organizations doing research and manufacturing. They provide specialized functions that again might be too expensive for a company to invest in on their own. There are several benefits. They can supplement internal groups, provide a less expensive way of gaining capabilities that are needed on a short-term basis, provide a backup resource in case a local laboratory becomes swamped with work, or they simply need to use an outside laboratory to verify internal testing. Using contract laboratories or contract organizations does create some issues, some of which need to be addressed by IT groups. For example, the laboratories that you are working with will have their own data organizations, their own database systems for storing information. The data generated by the contract labs has to be integrated with the internal laboratory's data. Because different products may be used, this may prove difficult and require consulting services from the IT group. The use of a contract facility does not lessen the regulatory burden on the company. The same regulatory requirements that exist for the primary company are extended to the contract lab or contract manufacturing facility. In short, they are to be treated as a virtual extension of the corporate facilities, as we'll see in later segments of this course. This has considerable applications for IT work. There are also concerns about the quality of work being done by outsourced organizations. When organizations are chosen, the quality and veracity of its work has to be carefully analyzed. In addition, ongoing evaluations have to be done to ensure that there are no developing quality problems. The problems that can develop are significant. For example, in July of 2011, a news report resulted in an investigation by the FDA. A contract research organization basically fabricated the data it reported to its client. As a result, all the company's work had to be repeated, as did the work that was done for other companies. One element that we've mentioned several times so far is that of regulatory requirements. If you are an investor or the finance officer of a company, you may see these regulatory requirements as an expense, something to be avoided. They may also see it as a delay in getting products to market. If you're the consumer, you can see the same regulations as a means of protection against poor product quality, tainted foods, or unsafe practices. We often may not think about regulatory requirements until a product recall occurs, such as when there is a warning about a food product that poses a health risk, for example, the 2011 recalls on lettuce or cantaloupe due to salmonella contamination. The same holds true for medical products that don't deliver on the promises that were made about their effectiveness, or those that are found to cause unacceptable side effects. Often the attempts to circumvent regulatory requirements can cause massive problems. For example, the 2010 Gulf oil spill, when environmental regulations were ignored, was just one issue. Regulations exist to ensure product quality, safety, and the continued effectiveness of products. Once a product is approved, it is still subject to regulatory review, and if its effectiveness is not maintained, the product may be pulled from the market. There are also reviews of product marketing practices to make sure that products are being correctly presented to the marketplace and that unsubstantiated claims are not being made. Often, as we will see later, regulations are enacted in response to an incident. Rarely are they enacted before an incident occurs. In the life sciences industries, this means that some health-related issue has cropped up and needs to be addressed. In the United States, there are two agencies that the life sciences are responsible to, the FDA and EPA. While the first is obvious, the second may be less so. The EPA is concerned with the effect of product and waste disposal during manufacture and distribution. They also address issues such as a buildup of drugs in the water system as a result of improper disposal of unused drug products. Aside from the U.S. regulatory bodies, there are a number of international groups that form the same function in Europe and elsewhere. The list you see on the screen isn't comprehensive, but it shows the major organizations. There is a developing cooperation between U.S. and international regulatory bodies to provide consistency in regulatory requirements and practices. Even so, you'll find a number of different regulations from different agencies addressing the same things with slightly a different emphasis or approach to the requirements. Because of the nature of the life sciences market and the global impact that drugs can have on that market, you need to be aware of all of the regulations that may impact your industry. We will be covering these later in the course. Information technology has increasing importance in the life sciences industries. No matter where you look, the emphasis is being placed on computer systems for acquiring and managing data. Look at the diagram on the right of the screen. On the bottom level, we have a representation of the lab bench. The computing systems are used to support instrumentation, sample preparation, and data analysis. The use of information technology and its applications is growing for two reasons at least. First, they improve productivity, and second, companies are paying more attention to managing laboratory data and extracting as much useful value out of it as they can. This means that the data has to be incorporated into computer systems and databases so it can be accessed, reviewed, and searched. At the next level, in the middle of the graphic, we have computer systems that oversee laboratory operations from the management perspective. Here, we're looking at client-server applications that may service a number of instruments, laboratory information management systems that are used to manage the workload and data collected from instrumentation, electronic lab notebooks that are used by researchers to record the results of their experiments, and routine laboratory office and document preparation systems that are used to report the results. In the past, laboratory computing was viewed as being isolated from the rest of the corporation. That's no longer the case. Laboratory data is viewed as a valued part of the corporate data structure, and linking laboratory data to other parts of the corporation is becoming increasingly important to improve the overall effectiveness of computing systems and corporate operations. As a result, planning is essential. Companies want to move more towards integration than they have in the past. We have to work out the basis for the tools that are needed to develop that integration. Access to data over long periods of time is critical for regulatory purposes. In addition, we have to take new account product lifecycle management and data storage management so that researchers can get access to both current and historical data. The reason companies are willing to do all this is because drug treatments can be very profitable. The chart on the screen shows the top-selling drugs in 2005, which is the latest period we have data for. The sales of these products range from $5 to $12 billion. The drug industry can be very profitable. That profit is directly related to patent life. Once a patent is granted, the company has 20 years to exert its influence, make sales, and generate revenue. Once the research and development phase are done, that income generation may only last from 7 to 12 years. Lengthening that period improves the company's profitability. One of the biggest challenges to a company is the drug's movement towards generic drug manufacturing. All the discovery work has been done by the initial patent holding company. Generics have no discovery costs. They benefit from all the marketing that was done before, so they get lower costs and much higher profits. As a result, companies will take whatever steps they can to lengthen their patent protection. Among the techniques used are finding new uses for existing drugs. That allows them to keep control over the patent and extends the time they have control over income from sales. They may also be able to offer new formulations that lower the dosage and reduce side effects, or show synergistic effects from combinations of drugs. All of these can lengthen the time the company controls the manufacture of a particular drug. Aside from technical methods of extending patent protection, some companies may simply pay other companies to not produce a drug. Cipro is a drug that is used to treat infections such as anthrax. Once the patent ran out, there was a possibility of another company offering a generic version. The company holding the patent was able to protect its marketing position by simply paying off the other manufacturers. The cost of drug development may reach $1 billion per drug as the research moves from the consideration of thousands of possible candidates down to one. As a result, companies take whatever steps necessary to protect their patent position and their sales. If you walk into the lobby of a biotech or pharmaceutical company, you'll find the usual list of departments. The rest of this course will focus on the information technology requirements in 5 of them, including IT services, legal, regulatory, research and testing labs. with most of the emphasis on the latter two.